It's that time of the year. Leaves are starting to fall, temperature's starting to drop, water starts to freeze. That's what I'd like to talk to you about today, is how we are planning to deal with our animals come this winter. This is going to be our first winter, so it's going to be quite a bit of learning to see how certain animals react, especially the chickens and the goats. The rabbits, for the most part, I'm not too concerned about. However, the goats, especially our Nubian goat, she's got really thin ears, so I'll be keeping a close eye on that when the temperatures get down to I'd say minus 30, minus 40. They got a pretty good shelter in there. I put in some wind protectors, but I also got to deal with their water situation. I don't have hydro out there, so I'm going to be taking a different approach to trying to prevent their water from freezing. And I'm not trying to prevent it from freezing altogether. I'm just going to try and prolong how fast the water freezes. But first, we're going to start out at the chicken coop and with the rabbits as well. One of the things we did on our last town trip was stop off at a livestock shop and pick up a bunch of things for the winter. And the first item we're going to start off with is a heated water for the chickens. I'll leave a card up above on how I rerouted the hydro so that we're powering the chicken coop and the rabbit pen all together off the house, so that you can see that. And this way we don't have to run the generators and use the sunlight, even though in the summer we will be getting some days that are 18 hours of darkness. But it is what it is, and we move on. So this water here, it was probably about $60 Canadian. Basically, it's got a little heater on the inside here. The chickens will push this little nub in here to let the water release, and it has a built-in power cord. This obviously holds 2 gallons of water, so that'll typically be good for the chickens for up to 2 days, because currently that's the water we have now. And I was pleasantly surprised that these don't take up too much power. It is only a 60-watt heater in there. I know that might sound a lot, but I've seen like heat trace cables that run up to 200 to up to 500 watts. And so 60 watts on that note is not bad. So we're going to install that shortly as well. All I have to do is add a little chain here, and I'm going to put that in here now so that I don't have to do it or scramble when the snow starts to fly. And as a matter of fact, 2 days ago we woke up to a blanket of snow all over the place. So I'll leave you a little picture so that you can check that out. And the next thing we're going to be putting into both the chicken coop and the rabbit pen inside here is heat lamps. The rabbit side, I'm not going to deal with heated water, because I'm going to have heat lamps close to the ground, and I'll have their water dishes right there, and that should prevent it from freezing up. And I know I could probably do that with the chickens. However, there's another reason I'm actually going to be putting in a heat lamp as well in there, and that is because the egg layers need a certain light cycle to produce eggs. And we've been noticing over the past week and a half, as the days are getting shorter and colder, we are not getting 12 eggs on the daily. We are getting about 10, 11, sometimes 9. And I read into this many months ago, and I figured I'll let them go for a little bit longer till the production gets a little less, and then I'll start firing this up. And this is a heat lamp that we also purchased, and it has a button here so that you can reduce the power that is produced by the lamp by 50%. And the bulbs that we're going to be using in here are going to be a white light as opposed to your red light, and that is just to give the chickens the light cycle that they need, and without lowering the production of eggs any more than what they will be producing in the winter. So we will be putting in regular white lights in there. These ones are 250 watts. I'm not gonna run them full at 250 watts. I'm gonna see how long I can go without running them at full blast, so I'll be running them at 125, and same with the rabbit side, I'll be running them at 125 as well. However, on that side I'll be putting just the standard red lamp in there because rabbits don't produce eggs, so I don't need to worry about that. And I would like to keep a backup just in case the one in the chicken coop somehow burns out and I need a replacement. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. I know there are some people out there, I've been following a channel out in Alaska. They're raising their chickens and they're also egg layers outside, and they're not running lights or heat lamps, and seems to be doing pretty well. So if you're watching this and you raise your own egg layers, let me know in the comments section. Do you use a heat lamp, or do you not use a heat lamp? Because I've seen mixed reviews on if you should and if you shouldn't. So if you could leave a comment down there and let me know your opinion, that would be great. So we're gonna go head into the chicken coop now and get things set up in there. All right, we are in the chicken coop, and right behind me here is the current feeder that we have and the water right here. Oh, sorry chickens. Anyways, what I'm gonna do is switch these two around and put the feeder over here and the water on this side where the feeder currently is. The reason for that is the receptacle that I'm using is gonna be right above it on the wall. And there's another hook right beside the feeder here that is sitting right above their perch, and that's where I'm gonna be putting the heat lamp for a couple reasons. First, is the closest spot to the receptacle, and just because heat rises and typically the chickens will sit up high on here overnight and most of the day if they're not outside. It only makes sense to keep the heater up high. All right, I got the water put up here and I got the feeder moved over. One issue I came across now is because the ceiling goes up on an angle a little bit and is further away from the receptacle, I'm a little short. And by that I mean the cord on the water itself. So for the sake of 1 inch, which is the story of my life, I need to put in a extension cord just to make it reach. However, I won't need that issue on, or I won't have that issue on the heat lamp because it is only within a foot of the electrical outlet. One thing to look out for when you're prepping for the winter is to make sure that once you have all your heating devices in, that you don't have the heat escaping out of somewhere. When Kimberly and I moved out here at the beginning of the year, we started roaming around the buildings and found that the chicken coop had a little flap on it here. However, we didn't realize that the flap and the hinges on the flap were completely rusted out and they don't work. We tried a little bit of WD-40 just to grease it up. However, you can see that the flap is staying in the open position. So I'm just gonna seal this up, just a quick fix, just by taking this 2x6 it looks like, and just putting it across here, and then using some deck screws to screw into the door itself. And then the flap here, I'm going to screw into that, which will bring the flap inwards. And I'm just going to keep it like that because we just prefer to use the door itself than the flap. And then that way it will prevent the air from escaping and any other critters or wolverines that might want to eat our chickens come the winter, because food supply is a little scarce come the winter. So I'm sure they would love our chickens. Again, it's not going to prevent a bear from getting in, but if a bear comes on the property, then we got some bigger problems, don't we? Alright, we're on the rabbit side of the chicken coop, and there's a couple things we need to do in here to get ready for winter. And like I said, the first thing is to hang up the heat lamp inside of the cage here. I attached some jack chain, which is going to be perfect, and I put in the red bulb on this side. If we feel that the rabbits need some more daylight come those long dark days, I always have a LED light here that I can turn on for that purpose. Obviously I have this area split up into two. You might be looking at, why is this fence on the inside here? And believe it or not, rabbits can climb up plywood. I'm not sure how they do it, but we found rabbits multiple times crawling over onto the other side, and then they're in there with either the chicks that we used to have in here or the other set of rabbits. Another thing we have to do is repair some of the chicken wire at the bottom here. We had a rabbit, keyword had a rabbit, which turned into dog food because first off, we didn't eat it because she was a little older, and the older rabbit meat typically isn't the greatest tasting. So we fed her to the rabbit, or to the dogs. And also on that note, not only is she destructive, we tried to get her pregnant twice this year with no success. You might be thinking that our buck, our male rabbit, is possibly shooting blanks, and I assure you he's not shooting blanks. Our first litter of rabbits was 7. We currently have 4 over here, and the first one that produced the 7 is pregnant again. So I assure you he's not pulling blanks or shooting blanks. So we're gonna start repairing this, hang the heat lamp. I'm not gonna do anything crazy about the water situation in here because I'm gonna have this door closed, and hopefully the heat can retain itself in here, and the water will stay liquid enough for them to drink. Another thing is, if you are getting prepared, make sure you have enough food for the whole winter. And the one good practice is to see how much food your animals go through the summer. And so I know my chickens typically go through a bag of feed usually between 3 and 4 weeks, so typically I'll need a bag a month. The rabbits, however, they are going through I give them a lot of hay, and I only feed them kibble once a day, and that bag of kibble usually lasts about 2 months, depending on the amount of babies we have. And now that we have one less mother rabbit, female, that's a little bit less rabbit. And also you may be asking, why did we off the other rabbit? Why didn't we just keep her? Why would you want to feed an animal that's not producing what you need? So when you're homesteading, death is something that you have to deal with, either on a good side or a bad side. So we felt that we're not gonna feed her anymore if she can't give us what we need, and we actually saved money that day by not having to feed the dogs their food. Instead they had the rabbit, so it was a win-win on that side. So let's get to fixing this fence. Just gonna use some chicken wire here. You might recommend us putting in more heavy duty wire in here, and that was an idea that Kimberly and I have talked about, and we do have some. However, we're gonna repair it this time and see if this other rabbit's gonna chew through it. If she does, then we will do it, but the wire that we recently purchased is going to be for a winter project that I will be doing, and I'll be showing you guys also, and that is building a rabbit tractor, so that next year, spring, summer, and fall, we can put the rabbits outside. They'll be protected from all the hawks and other animals, and we can drag them around the property, and they can eat everything that is outside, grass, weeds, you name it. So stay tuned in a few months for that video, and I'm gonna get to fixing this now. Alright, we are now at the goat shed, and I learned this trick years ago when I was a young lad. I went out to a farm for a visit that was close to my grandma's place, or our farm should I say, and they had livestock on their farm, and this was just before Grandma was about to go down to Florida, which was usually about this time in October, and they were getting ready for their winter season, and they needed to prevent their water from freezing so quick. And this is one of the ideas that I've always had in the back of my mind, so I figured I'm gonna try it out for this winter. So what I do is I'm gonna take this tire here and this water here that is made of pure rubber. If anybody wants a good watering dish that is pretty indestructible, these things are mint. I've had plastic ones in there and the goats have completely destroyed them. So these plastic ones seem to withstand quite a bit, and in the winter these will do even better because they won't crack. So you can see that the water dish sits in here fairly tight in this opening. However, I do have the opening still going right through at the bottom, and I still have quite a big air gap going around the perimeter of the tire when I do have the watering dish in. So the idea with this is to insulate it as much as possible, and the reason we use rubber is because rubber is a good insulator just to begin with. And what I'm going to do now is I have some carpet here that I got from my surplus store years ago, and I'm currently not using them right now. And they're pretty thick. They're probably about a 1/4 inch thick with a good rubber backing on it. And I took this one here and I folded it up into a 1/4 of what it's supposed to be. And what I'm going to do with this one is just simply shove it into the tire here like this. Now that there alone will prevent any of the cold air from coming up into the tire and freezing the water in there. Because the goat house is elevated and there is a channel for wind to come, that is something that you want to keep in mind. Now if it was down on the ground, you might have a little bit of an easier time, but because this is an elevated building, I want to make sure that no air, cold air, that is getting up into the water dish. So I'm gonna have that in there. So I have probably about two inches of material down on the bottom there, and it's also lifted up and not touching the ground. And so you can see how the water dish is gonna sit now once it's in there sitting on top of the carpet. Like I said, now we still have a huge air gap that is around there, and you don't want the cold air to stay in there because it will get to the water and freeze it. So another thing that you want to do is you can do this with carpet. Carpet is preferred, but I've seen people do it with tarps burlap bags, just scrap clothing to do this. So you can do it with anything. This is my first time doing it, so this is a trial and error. I'm not saying this is going to be a once and done. I'm going to see how it goes throughout the winter and reassess from there. So I'm going to roll up that carpet like I just did and then just jam it on the inside of the tire. So there, I got that half of the tire covered there. Roll up the next one. And that's that there. So you can see that everything is covered. There can't be any wind getting in there. What I'll do is I will tuck this inside here, move the carpet in there so that I can wedge the water dish right in there. And there you go. That's how I'm going to leave it for now, and see as the nights and days get colder, see how the water stays. If it freezes up, it does. I'll have to reassess from there, maybe get a torch on it and thaw it out, and I'm just kidding, but we'll see what happens. The next thing we're going to do is put some bedding in there. I had some bedding in there, but I tossed that bedding into the garden a couple of days ago for some compost. So time to put some more bedding in there. All right, the bedding is in. It's not perfect. However, over time, as I give the goats more hay, they will make a mess, add to the bedding, and as they urinate and poop on it, they will compact down, giving it a better solid bedding and a better thermal barrier. I'd love to hear from anyone that deals with animals. What are some of your tips and tricks for keeping your animals warm, keeping your water thawed so that they have something to drink over the winter? What are some things that you have learned? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video.